Hello dear students, welcome to lecture 7 of strategic human resource management. We will be discussing a topic of unit 1 and that is SHRM for competitive advantage. So, by now you know what is strategic human resource management, what is its importance, how it developed over a period of time. Today we will relate it to a very important part of the entire existence of business, that every business, every company wants to establish a competitive advantage, so that it has, as the very name, as the very phrase suggests, that it should have an advantage edge over its competitors. So, we will discuss how SHRM will help a company to deliver that competitive advantage. So, before we move on to that, we will first discuss what is competitive advantage. I am sure that by now you must be knowing, you must have studied about this concept of competitive advantage in different subjects. Just to recapitulate, competitive advantage is an attribute that enables a company to outperform its competitors. It allows a company to achieve superior margins compared to its competition and generates value for the company and its stakeholders. So, you can very well see that for a competitive advantage to be created, what should be there? It is a quality, it is a characteristic of a company because of which it can do better than its competitors. Its performance would be higher than its competitors, and it also allows a company to have better returns, better margins, better revenues compared to its competition, and it generates more value for the company and of course for its shareholders. Now, there can be just to more clarify the concept, some examples of competitive advantage could be access to natural resources which competitors do not have or which are restricted from the competitors. So, natural resources would be accessed by all the companies, but if there is a natural resource which only one or two companies or only one company is having access to, even if the quality is superior than others can have access to, then also it is going to act as a source of competitive advantage. Then second is highly skilled labor. So, labor manpower is also available to all the companies, but a company which can which can work on its manpower, which can develop its manpower, with the manpower of the company is skilled, it is much better than its competitors, then again it will be a source of competitive advantage. Then a unique geographical location. So, some retail outlet which is there on a very busy road where there is lot of footfalls. So, that can be a competitive advantage. Then access to new or proprietary technology, some technology which the company has developed, which is not there in any of the competitors, and which the company has filed for an IPR also. So, that can be a source of competitive advantage. Then ability to manufacture products at the lowest cost. Like for example, one reason why Chinese products became so popular in the Indian market was the cost at which they were able to manufacture their products, and hence at the price which they were able to sell. And then of course, brand equity. The kind of the benefit which a company can enjoy because the product carries a particular brand name, and the kind of price premium which a company can get from the customers, the kind of brand extensions it is possible for the company to launch, because the brand itself is very strong in the minds of the customer. So, that also is something which acts as a source of competitive advantage. So, these are some of the examples of competitive advantage. Now, when we are talking about competitive advantage, then we have to refer to a theory which you must have studied maybe in strategic management, and that is the resource based view of a firm. Now, what is this resource based view? I will just try to revise for you. To have the potential of sustained competitive advantage, the resource based view proposes that a firm must have 4 attributes. So, this theory helps you to understand that on the basis of certain resources, how can a firm, a company derive competitive advantage over its competitors. And if a company has certain resources which have these 4 characteristics, which I will just mention to you after this, then the company can derive competitive advantage over its competitors. Now, what are these 4 attributes? The first is valuable resources. The resource which the company possesses is really important. It is a critical resource, it is a significant resource, and the company derives a lot of value out of these resources. Now, if these resources are available to everybody, to competition also, then there will be these resources will not be the source of competitive advantage. Then that means that these resources should be rare also. That means every company should not be having access to these resources. That is the second characteristic of a resource being able to generate competitive advantage for a firm. Then next is these resources should be imperfectly imitable. Imperfectly imitable meaning thereby that these resources should not be easily copied by the competition. If these resources are valuable, they are rare, but very easily, like we get books photocopied, similarly the competitor can very easily copy these resources, then again there will be no derivation of competitive advantage. So, these resources should not be such resources which can be easily imitated by the competitor. Even if they can imitate, then it will not be a perfect copy of the original. It will look like a duplicate copy. And the last is that these resources are non-substitutable. That is, there is no other alternative to these resources. So, if a company possesses a resource which cannot be accessed by the other company, but the other company develops a resource which can very well act as an alternative to this resource, then again the competitive advantage is lost. So, these resources should be non-substitutable. Now, we look at this flow chart and which explains to us the resource based view of the firm. This resource based view relies on, of course, resources. These resources can be tangible, they can be intangible. That is, you know what tangible resources are, the land, the machine, etc. And these can be intangible in the sense of the morale of the employees, or the commitment level of the employees, or the goodwill of the company. These must be heterogeneous. Heterogeneous means that if they should not be uniformly distributed. That is, if all companies have these resources in equal proportion, then they will not be able to become a source of competitive advantage. So, they should be heterogeneous, they should be immobile. It must be very difficult, it should be rather very difficult for these resources to move from one organization to another. If they are very easily moving from one organization to another, then again they will not become the source of competitive advantage. And then they should have the Vryo attributes. Vryo attributes you must have studied. Vryo resources are valuable, rare, which cannot be imitated, inimitable, and organized for usage. Organized for usage means that the company should be able to use these resources to the best possible way. It should be able to optimize the resource. If the company has lot of resources, but it is not able to use these resources, put them into proper, derive proper value out of these resources, then these resources are waste, they cannot deliver competitive advantage for the company. So, Vryo resources, and these resources they provide competitive advantage to the business. So, this is how the resource based view of a firm helps us to understand how resources can become the source of competitive advantage for a business. And of course, throughout your management course, throughout your MBA, you must be hearing this phrase, this sentence over and over again, that human resource are the most important resources of an organization. We are talking about strategic partners now. So you can very well understand that if human resources have these qualities, these attributes which we just mentioned right in the resource based view, then that means that they can become the source of competitive advantage. And if we develop our human resource policies, human resource practices in such a way we are able to strategize, then in that case our human resource can become the source of competitive advantage. So, numerous studies indicate the importance of aligning human resource strategies to achieving business goals and enhancing business performance. So, a lot of research has been conducted on this, and mostly all that research has concluded about the significance of human resource and how important it is to align the human resource strategies with the overall business strategy to derive optimum level of business performance. Companies that leverage their human capital to achieve their business objectives, especially growth, have more positive results. So, those companies which have been able to optimize their human capital in order to achieve their business objectives have kind of witnessed more growth and better revenues and more profit and a lot of positive results. And why is that so? Because human resources are the only source of new ideas and solving any business problems. So, you can have the latest of machineries, you can have the best of the location, you can have a lot of capital with you, but if your human resource is not able to innovate, it is not able to solve problems, then in that case all that resource goes to waste. Then they represent quality, value and innovation. Quality of the employees cannot be copied, unlike company systems and processes. The very important characteristic of human resource which differentiates it from other resources is the fact that human resources, all units of human resources are different from each other. So, you cannot copy, and a competitor cannot copy. If one employee leaves the organization, then it is very difficult for us to look for a substitute, because no other person can be better, can be worse, but he will or she will never be a perfect substitute of that person. So, that is very important that we focus on the quality of employees, because that cannot be copied by the competitor, that cannot be imitated by the competitor. Rest of the systems and processes, the marketing strategies, the financial strategies, the R&D also can be very easily copied by the competitor. It comes down to the fact that companies with better employees have competitive advantage. So, it becomes very clear that companies which are able to focus on their human resource and they are able to get the maximum out of the human resource can derive a lot of competitive advantage in reference to their competitors. Now, what employees do is largely a function of when we are talking about deriving competitive advantage through employees, that means that our employees should be performing to their optimum, to the best level possible they should be performing. Now, what level of performance employees give or how they function, how they perform is basically determined by two very important factors. And what are these two factors? The first factor is what they have, what employees possess in terms of their talent, skills, experience, qualification, etc. And the second which is equally important if not more important then is how they feel, that is their level of self motivation, their commitment, their sincerity, the morale of the people, the positive attitude which they have, the sense of belongingness which they have towards the organization. So, how they feel and what they have. So, what they have will lead to a lot of the things which are there mentioned in the job specifications, that will be talking about what they have or what they should possess, right. But equally important is their behavior. So, HR strategy has the most significant impact on what employees actually do on the job. So, the kind of recruitment and selection and training and performance appraisal policies which the organization has will determine what they have, right. And through these we can also improve what they have, right, through training etc., performance appraisal we can also find out what they have and how that can be improved. And the other part is that yes, of course, when we have good human resource strategies in place, then we can also work on how they feel. If we have proper compensation plans, incentive plans, we focus on the quality of work life of people, we help them to achieve work life balance, we listen to their grievances, then what happens that how they feel also improves over a period of time. And when how they feel improves, then what happens, a combination of these two will bring about the best of performance from the employees and of course, the best of performance for the organization also. So, HR strategies need to focus simultaneously on building skills, motivation and behavior for a successful business strategy. So, that is very important that these two, both these aspects have to be catered to by the HR policies. So, HR strategies need to focus simultaneously on building skills which will impact what they have, and of course, the motivation and behavior which will correspond to how they feel and for a successful business strategy. Now, there are 5 types of employee behavior relevant to a company's success. So, when we are talking about how they feel, right, because what they have is quite very obvious at the time of selection of the employee, right. So, we are focusing more about how they feel, right. So, when we are talking about that, so there are 5 types of behavior which are very important for a company to achieve success through its human resource. The first is task behavior. Now, task behavior it refers to things that employees are supposed to do as a part of their jobs. So, what is expected from there, whatever their job descriptions are, whatever the responsibilities and accountabilities which have been given to them, are they fulfilling those things or not. So, for example, if there is a teacher, then her task behavior or his task behavior will be taking regular classes and understanding students, answering to students queries and all those things. So, that will be the task behavior. Then there is discretionary behavior also, that is which is like which is also should be there, but it is up to the employees whether they are displaying this behavior or not, that is beyond the task behavior. So, it refers to employees using their discretion to go above and beyond the job description. So, for example, in case of a teacher, what would be the discretionary behavior? That whatever is mentioned as a part of the formal curriculum, the teacher goes beyond that also to cover those things which are not the part, but which are very contemporary and relevant for the student to know and develop an understanding of them. So, that would be the discretionary behavior of the teacher, right. Or if somebody some student who was earlier doing very well suddenly stopped performing in the class, then the teacher can just help that student in finding out what is the problem, and if some solution can be proposed, that would also be a discretionary behavior, not directly a part of the job description, but yes, the teacher can go out of her way to help the student. So, that would be a discretionary behavior. Then next is counterproductive behavior. Now, this is also very, very important, because if like for example, employees are doing very well on their tasks, they are doing their discretionary behavior also well, but they are indulging in counterproductive behavior, like those behaviors, those things which the organization does not want to do them to do, like stealing supplies, taking long personal calls, even sabotaging products or equipments. So, that is counterproductive behavior. For example, in the case of a teacher again, if the teacher is going for a very, very biased behavior, she is very partial towards the students, right? She answers to certain queries of certain students, does not answer, does not bother about the other students in the class, then that is a counterproductive behavior. Then next is of course the regularity of the person, attendance. It is the extent to which employees show up on time. And the last but not the least is the turnover. It refers to the employee leaving the organization, how fast the employees of an organization change, how quickly, at what rate they are moving out of the organization. And this is a very important factor, because it results in additional replacement cost, because once the employee goes, it is very difficult to find a perfect substitute, as I said, and lot of time and money is gone into recruitment, selection, training. The person makes mistakes because he's or she is new, so and a lot of time and effort goes into training and rectifying those mistakes. So, turnover also has to be taken care of, and if it is high turnover, then human resource cannot become a source of competitive advantage for the organization. So, these are the 5 behaviors. If the employees are doing well on all these 5 behaviors, that means that these employees, our human resource strategies are doing well, and that means the human resource can act as a source of competitive advantage. Now, to more explain this, we will take up a case study. This is of Trader Joe's. This is an American chain of grocery stores headquartered in Monrovia, California, and it was started in 1967 by Joe Coulomb. And Trader Joe's began as a convenience store, but quickly it migrated to a more novel design for adventurous food and beverage shoppers. So, it is a kind of a very different kind of a store, wherein generally supermarkets will carry about 50,000 items. This will only carry about 4,000 items, and it will only focus on things which customers like. Very quickly their merchandise will change, and their motto is to provide products at the least possible price to the customer, because they focus a lot of on it, and they say every penny which we save is every penny which the customer saves. So, that is the kind of commitment which they have for the customer. Now, Coulomb sold the business in 1978 to Albrecht family, and still the company has not gone for public offerings. It is still a privately held company. The most unique feature about Trader Joe is the friendly staff and charming atmosphere. This is the differentiator, key differentiator. You can see many employees wearing Hawaiian shirts, very colorful shirts. And this all comes from their HR strategy. Trader Joe's employees are consistently some of the happiest people, always willing to lend a helping hand and share a recipe or even a story. So, they are always engaging with the customers. The creation of a helpful and cheerful workforce begins with the hiring process. It is said that Trader Joe's seeks people who are ambitious, outgoing, engaging, upbeat, fun-loving and adventurous. And a very important thing is that it is said that within 30 seconds during an interview, if you do not smile, that means you are eliminated there and then. It also strives to appoint employees who understand and appreciate the company's products. They must be TJ's customers and should be able to describe its favorite product. So, that is the kind of involvement they want employees to have in the business and with the customers. Each Trader Joe's store is operated as its own entity with a captain, mate, merchant and crew. This is the nomenclature which they give to their employees. At the top is a captain who optimizes every process and task the crew executes and is always internally promoted to the position. So, this is the most important part, to encourage people and to develop a sense of belongingness. The captain is then supported by a team of mates who are also always internally promoted. They work side by side with the crew to teach them all things from manning the register to stocking shelves. Then there is the merchants and the crew. These are the new people and they are, as mentioned in the website, they are called the heart and soul of Traders Joe, and they do almost all works. They are rotated across works, bagging groceries, cleaning floors, offering samples to customers. To keep employees' knowledge up to date about its ever changing stock, they are offered weekly tastings of latest offerings. Trader Joe's make sure its employees are engaging with customers, and for that a very unique thing which they do is that they keep the task of stocking shelves during the store hours when there are a lot of customers, so that employees are available near the shelves and they can engage with the customers. Turnover among full-time crew is 4%, so low yearly, substantially below that of traditional supermarkets, and its unique organizational culture that is carefully aligned with its own competitive business strategy and with the values of the customers provides an effective defense against competitors. This is how they have developed the competitive advantage, and such a strong and targeted organizational culture takes time to develop and provides customers with a valuable and difficult to copy experience. This is very important, inimitable. It is always more complicated for competitors to imitate who you are than what you do. Right? Trader Joe's has made its identity and not just its products its major competitive advantage. So, the speciality of Trader Joe is that it is not merely focusing on its systems or its products offering, they are unique, but what it is more focusing on, how employees engage with the customer. So, it has developed strategic human resource management as a source of competitive advantage in its arena of operations. So, I hope that you have understood how SHRM can derive competitive advantage for a business. Thank you so much.